well, you make a lot of video game graphism.
Yes.
When someone brings you a project of video game, how does it work? You imagine the characters, or they give you some clues about the story?
Yes, good question. I mean, I'm a concept artist, so I draw what things should look like in a video game. I will draw characters, or weapons, or environments, or vehicles, whatever needs to be done.
Right.
And the way it works is that I have an art director. He's my boss, or she. And that person comes to me with a briefing. It's the mission, what I need to do. So let's say I need you to draw a Chinese dragon.
Okay.
What I'll do then is my art director might have an idea what he wants it to look like. So he'll provide me with reference images. And if he doesn't, I will go online and I'll look for reference myself. So the first step is always to look for reference material. How does this look? How has it been done before? And looking at reference, you get new ideas. Because if I just start by drawing, I'm just going to do something that I have seen before or I have done before. So it's going to repeat something. But if I do research and look for reference, it allows me to explore new ideas and do things I didn't think of before. So that's the first step. After I get the reference, I will start doing rough sketches. So when I work with a client, they don't want to see just one idea. They want to see many ideas. And then we have a dialogue, which is the best one. So I'll usually present maybe 4 or 5 different ideas of, say, a Chinese dragon. And they say, okay, we like this, we like that, and can you combine the horns of this and the scales of that? And we kind of mix and match. And then I start making a more detailed concept from there. Yeah.
Okay. Just excuse me. I thought the question were in French, but I translated it. So
I think you have the two version of it.
yeah, I just noticed it.
And I mean, a lot of what I do as well is I have to explore what will not work in the game. They might think, can you try that direction or that direction? So often I have to do drawings of things that will not work in the game. That's a hard part about my job, is that maybe 80% of what I do is going to go straight in the trash. It's going to be thrown away because it's not what they want. But that's my job. I'm a bit like a genie, like the genie in a bottle, and a minesweeper. So I fulfill your wishes, and I do what you want, and I'll go off and see, does that work? Does that work? Or what's the best way to go? So it's a bit of a combination.
Okay.
Yeah.
Your turn, maybe?
So this is the translation of this.
And there is
next page. Yes. So yeah. So these characters are your creations from. We were talking about what we saw on his portfolio. That's it. So we watched your portfolio.
Yeah.
And yes, we did that. They've been imagined by you. Wait, what are you doing?
Sorry, that's okay. Excuse me. Okay.
And you often say, because we also read some interviews, that you like to imagine characters entirely. His, her personality, his, her story. So, that was still about the video games conception. But do you participate? Do you add something about the characters?
When they
something
make
about maybe
video game?
Yeah, we thought maybe about the gesture,
it's a different thing actually, because when you do personal work, you are free to do whatever you want. You can come up with any story that you want, that you find interesting. When you work on a video game, someone else will do that story, so you have to adapt to their vision. And what's tricky about video games is that sometimes, or very often, the story changes. So when you get it first, it's going to be one kind of story, and 2 months later, it's a different kind of story. So it's very different to design, and can be very difficult to design a character when you don't have a story, or when the story is changing. So what I'll often do is I will have to imagine it on my own, because they say, okay, we want you to draw a knight who is, chasing dragons. Let's stick with the dragon theme. Then I have to figure out, okay, what happened to this character before? Why is she chasing dragons? and how does she do it? Is she smart? Is she just raw strength? Does she use magic or whatever? So I need to figure out a backstory to this character, because if I don't have that, the character won't be interesting in the end, I think. So you need to have a story, and hopefully the briefing will provide you with one. And if it doesn't, you will need to figure it out a bit on your own. But when you do personal work, it's all you, so you can do whatever you want. Of course, if you do fan art, or you're building on maybe you're making a sequel to a game, you already have a foundation. So let's say you're working on World of Warcraft, and there's a lot of history and lore, and you can be inspired by that. So it depends if you work on a new game or something that exists already.
Okay.
Just excuse me. We read an interview about you for Pioneer Arena. It was a bit, okay, and you declared you have 3 dreams. Okay, and the second one is about having part in the credits of a film.
Right.
But
Which would have won an Oscar.
which would have won an Oscar. And can you talk about it? What will be your part in that film? Will be
Oh, I mean, I see myself as a concept artist, so I develop the visual language of a film. I design what everything should look like. So that's something I would like to do. There is a difference between visual development artist and character designer. The visual designer will design the sets, they will design the environments and all of that. I'm more focused on character design, so I like to design characters. That's the best part for me, really. And the kind of movies that appeal to me are more like Terminator 2 or Jurassic Park, like The Thing by John Carpenter and Aliens. It's more action-oriented movies, and you don't see that a lot, especially in animation. Animation will be very family-friendly, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I would rather work on something like, the animated Batman series or something like that. It's just something that appeals to me, and the little teenage boy, that's very deep inside. Yeah.
Okay.
But what you really want to do is, I think, entertain people. I like to entertain people in whatever way I can. So if you can make them feel good, or make them think about some choice in their life, or that's something that would feel very meaningful. Like when I know people look at my stuff and they're entertained by it, that is very meaningful. I just love doing that. So, yeah.
Okay.
And do you think about working in animating film?
Maybe someday. That would be really fun. But it's also, the movie industry has a lot of overtime, and it's very tough. What I noticed over the years is that what gives me the most satisfaction is my personal artwork. I love working in a studio and on games, but the best thing is when you do your own work, and I think working in movies right now, it requires you to do a lot of overtime and so on. And also, if you look at Pixar and Disney, if you want to be a character designer, there's going to be a lot of people. Maybe there's going to be 10 people or so designing the same character. The chance that your design is going to be picked is very, very small. So in TV series or in video games, there's a higher chance that your work will actually be seen on the screen, for sure. And I'm not a huge fan of sequels all the time. I like new original movies and original things, so I prefer doing that as opposed to working on a sequel to a movie.
Okay.
It's good. You guys are asking some new questions that I haven't been asked before, so you did a little bit of research. I can
we
tell.
try that.
And your answers are amazing.
Oh, thank you.
Yes.
Very interesting.
Yeah. So it's maybe a bit early because it refers to an interview you did quite not so much long ago, I think.
Mm-hmm.
You talked about creating your own comics, and you seem to be a workaholic.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe you already have an idea, some rough sketch. I don't know.
Some
Sorry.
ideas. I designed a character recently who I call Einar. He's a Viking. And I have a story for that I think a little bit about. what guides me in my work is where will I find a challenge that will help me become a better artist. So I think working on a comic would force me to work on things that I'm not very good at. I don't feel I'm very good at telling stories in sequence of pictures, and also working a bit quickly and telling a story. I think is very difficult. So a comic would be fun from that point of view. And I got in touch with one of my favorite artists. His name is Marcello Vignali. He's an amazing artist who works in movies in the US, and I asked him to critique my work. And he said it looks very nice, but I think you would learn a lot from doing a comic or a sequential story like that. So I respect his advice, and he's very good, so I think that would be really good. But it's also a big commitment. If you want to do a comic book, there's a lot of things to do. So if I'm going to do it, I would start with a small thing, maybe 2 or 3 pages. And then if that works, I might consider doing something longer. The thing about comics too is that there's not a lot of money in comics. Like, it's very difficult to make a living, even if you're one of the best in the world. And even in France, and you guys have the best comic book culture in the world. But you know, you might need to do something like Black Sad or Asterix and Obelix to, you know, make it work, make a living out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Oh, you're welcome. That's it.
No, maybe just. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
Yeah, you always have a question.
Yes, that's a question I really like, because we had the chance to talk with other guests, and I really like this question about: do you feel connected to one of the characters you've drawn? Do you feel close?
Always.
Yeah.
The thing about character design is, there are 2 things to say about that. The first is, when I design a character, I try to imagine a fantasy. So it might be the fantasy of being a big, strong, powerful person who's unstoppable. It might be the fantasy of being someone who's very confident about his or her sexuality. Someone who's able to talk about anything to anyone. You know, and these are fantasies that I try to relate to, or that I think others might have. And I want the character to be the ultimate, like, realization of that fantasy, no matter what it might be. So even if I draw, I draw a lot of beautiful, very sexy girls, but it's also about expressing confidence and being cool with feeling seductive and all of that. So it's exploring these parts and these fantasies. The second part is a character. I try to relate the story. So let's say I have a story. I want to think, if I have felt something like this character in my life, have I experienced something like I imagine this character is going through? And I really need to have that relationship with my character to do it honestly, to do it, to make an interesting character, I think. Otherwise, it's just a shell. It's just a bunch of, you know, you might make it look cool, but hopefully I can make it relatable to some fantasy I've had, or some story, or something that I've experienced, or an emotion I've had in my life, for sure. So, of course, when you work in a company, it's a bit different, because, as I said, 80% of what you do is going to be thrown away. And it can be pretty harmful. Like, you can be hurt if something you do and you pour your heart and soul into it. So, professionally, I feel you need to have a little bit more distance. Personally, on my own work, I try to put more of, you know, myself in there. So it's a bit of a difference, like what you do professionally, what you do on your own. That would be the way I think about it.
Okay.
Cool?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so cool.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Yay!